Hello, everybody. Welcome to day 2 of the West Coast 2019 Mandela Effect Conference. It's a pleasure to have everybody here. I'm so glad you guys were able to make it for second day. I've got a question for everybody. In your journey here, or planning to get here, did you have things that seemed like they were trying to stop you from coming here? Show of hands. Pretty good majority of the room. I also had a couple things that actually tried to stop me. It was really funny because it was very synchronous. Everything was working great up to about 2 weeks before. Then it's like some entity said, oh, we're late. Get them. But tonight you're going to find, and I apologize that I just dropped everything on the ground. Tonight you're going to find that our talks actually have a running theme. It wasn't done on purpose, another synchronicity. The theme tonight is kind of a personal awakenings type theme, or our personal stories, how it's really affected us. Last night was a lot about history and theories, and I want you guys to know that I didn't plan this like this at all. As a matter of fact, I had one schedule planned out, and about 3 weeks ago, my speakers decided, oh, wait a minute, it would work better if we did it like this. Okay, no problem, switched it all around, and it worked out as it has tonight and this weekend, where it seems like every night has literally got its own theme. That was not my planning. I wish I could take credit for that. But before we do get started, of course, none of this would be possible without our incredible sponsors, and we would definitely like to give them a shout out. Ladies and gentlemen, the quantum businessman, Mr. Chris Anatra, right here. We've got the medium that rocks, Miss Kim Schur, right here. And if you guys have not got your coupon off the back table yet, make sure you get your $5 off coupon from Smoky Mountain Pizza. I would also like to extend our deepest gratitude to our speakers this year, of course, and everybody who's volunteered and helped with this project. Thank you guys so much. It has been an absolute honor and pleasure to work with each and every one of you. Now, my story. How did I come about the Mandela Effect, and why do I even believe it? What got me involved? Why did I host this? What brought me to this point? I've asked that a lot this weekend, and it's funny because I started writing this before anybody harassed me, and before I even knew that this whole week or whole day had personal experience. It was really strange. I wrote it for this day, and then just an hour before I got here, it clicked. Wait a minute, everybody's story has a very personal meaning to it. I can't get over synchronicities. It's wild. Anyway, 2008, I had an experience that I will never forget. Have you all had friends that are your closest group of friends? Just people that you know better than you know yourself. You know them inside out like the back of your hand. You can predict what they're going to do most of the time. I had a group like that. There were about 6 of us. And I know these people since grade school. I mean, a long time. And we're standing in a parking lot one day, and we're trying to figure out what our next move is going to be. Are we going to go to a store? Are we going to go to a movie? What are we going to do? And as I'm standing there listening to my friends talk, it clicked to me that this isn't right. The guy that's usually a butthead is the nice guy. The nice guy is being the butthead. The gossiper is not gossiping, the non-gossiper is. It's like everybody played musical personalities overnight. And I couldn't explain this. I had no context for it. This is '08. We didn't have the Mandela Effect in context at that point. So I walked around for 6 months, literally saying to people, I feel like I've woken up in a parallel dimension where everybody's exactly the same. They look the same memories, generally speaking, but they're different. Of course, everybody laughed at me and called me crazy, but then again, I've been a paranormal researcher for over 25 years. Crazy is a proud term to hold. So about a year later, one of the people that, part of this group whose personality had switched, come to me and said, hey, bud, can I tell you something very personal? You can tell me anything. It's like our group of friends, it's like they played musical personalities. They're all different all of a sudden. You don't say. But he independently verified it for me a year later. Again, I had no context for this. I didn't have anything else happen until 2015. 2015, I'm studying reincarnation. And I just happened upon a video taking a break by a guy named Mikey Chin from Beyond Science. Love that channel. So he, at the end of one of his videos, he mentions, well, a lot of people remember the Berenstain Bears spelled with an E. Pause. Remember it's spelled with an E? Well, what do you mean? Of course it's spelled with an E. Unpause. Well, it's actually spelled with an A. Pause. What? Okay, this guy's not making any sense. I know it had an E. It'll take me about 5 minutes to go get this evidence. I've never written a correction letter to a YouTuber at this point, but this warrants writing one. So I go looking for the evidence. I pull up Google Images. This will take a couple minutes. All right, Berenstain Bears. I can't find it to this day. I'm still looking for that evidence. And then I found out about the Mandela Effect. At the time, there were 4 effects, maybe 4. And I've watched it grow to thousands. But would you know that's not what convinced me? I had already started a YouTube channel. I started the Mandela Effect Theory series on Dark Wolf's Den. But I wasn't convinced I was telling the truth. I still had that little nagging feeling in the back of my mind. I'm sure we've all experienced this too. Could it really be false memory? Could it actually be that simple? Is science right? Of course, we don't ever want to admit we've had that thought, but we've all had it. And I was worried I was misleading my followers. I don't want to intentionally mislead anybody. But it took an experience. Moneybags put out a video. He said, Victoria's Secret has lost the apostrophe S. I don't know about most of the men in this room, but I've never shopped at Victoria's Secret. I don't know about you guys. Not very often, maybe on a woman's birthday. That's about the only time I've walked in that store. So I couldn't really say yes or no, but I took a hard line. Victoria's Secret, Victoria's Secret. That's splitting hairs. That's way too close for me. So I said, no, I'm sorry, guys. I love what you do, but you're wrong. I'm sorry, there's got to be a bad memory. You're wrong. I never put a public video out. But in my head, I took a hard stance. It is as it is right now. I went online, I got all kind of proofs. There's no apostrophe S. There's none. Anywhere you can find. Storefronts, magazines, you name it. Except the website. But that's a whole nother aspect. We won't even talk about the phenomenon. That's a whole nother day's worth of ranting. But anyway, it had no apostrophe S, and I was sure of it. Guaranteed sure of it. 2 or 3 weeks later, Moneybags comes out with a video. Victoria's Secret has gained its apostrophe S back. I had to take me a piece of humble leather shoe pie. And I'm here to tell you, shoe leather doesn't taste that good. So the next day, or the next time this happened, this wasn't enough to convince me it was real. Believe it or not, the first flip-flop didn't slap me hard enough. I had to have another one. A couple months later, Costco lost its T. It was just Costco. Again, I've never shopped at this store. It wasn't where I had happened to live. Sounds like you're splitting hairs again. I'm sorry, guys. You're getting too, touchy here. I can't agree with this. Again, I didn't make a video, but I put a hard line in my head. No, it's always been Costco. I'm pretty sure about that. 2 or 3 weeks later, the T decides to come back to reality. Now, mind you, I work in a field where I work with the public. I'm a front desk clerk. And as people come in, I ask for their ID and their credit card, and they flip their wallet open. We all keep tons of cards in our wallet. I know I do. A lot of times they'd have that Costco card on top. And I'd make a point to take an eye on that. No T. Yep, I'm right. No T. I was right. Because you can look online all day, but it's those real world moments. Like I can look online and see Jiffy's, now Jif all day. But I go into the grocery store and I'm looking at it. That changes things. So I'm looking at these cards when people are opening their wallets. It says Costco. See, I'm right. That T came back. I had another slice of humble shoe leather pie. And it didn't taste that good either. At that point, I was convinced false memory cannot explain a flip-flop. 2 times I called craps on an effect, and it flopped back. I had no other choice but believe that this is a real paranormal phenomenon. This is coming from a guy who's tried to logically explain everything away. Mind you, I'm a staunch skeptic because in that is how you find if it's real or not. And the Mandela Effect decided to prove itself to me whether I liked it or not. So that's my story. That's why I firmly, 120,000% stand on the fact that the Mandela Effect is a very real, very paranormal phenomenon going on. And I don't care if you can negate 99.99999% of the effects. If you can bring it down to one effect, just one thing that has changed retroactively in history, is that not an astounding effect, whether it's scientific or paranormal? Period. I don't care if you can get rid of the 100,000 that we have found and can bring it down to the Berenstain Bears or the Costco. The fact that anything has changed retroactively, period, is huge. Not let alone what we've all experienced and seen personally. And we've got one person here who's been dealing with this for 20 more years than we even knew. So, and she has really laid the groundwork for what we've done this both this weekend and in this entire community. She was the first person, Miss Cynthia here, to really look at time anomalies, time mistakes, effects in reality that everybody at her time told her, no, you're mistaken. You're crazy. I apologize, I'm about to embarrass you. She come to me one day and she said, well, I said, I really appreciate your help. You've helped me so much. It really means a lot to me. She said, are you kidding me? I've been waiting 20 years for you. It's about time somebody looked at this and had some kind of meeting about it. Heck yeah. All right, that's my story, ladies and gentlemen. That's how I found the Mandela Effect. Our first speaker tonight is one of 4 co-authors of the book, The Mandela Effect, Friend or Foe, which is available for purchase right back here in the back of the room for anybody who would like a copy. He is the host of the YouTube channel, Unbiased and On the Fence, and a man that I've had more than my fair share of hours worth of talking to. We had a full 6-hour conversation about a falling tree one day. Maybe I'll tell you about that. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Shane Robinson.
Thank you so much. Well, I had the flip-flop of Houston, we've had a problem. Houston, we have a problem. And I couldn't be sure when I first heard about it. So I really looked into it. I saw people arguing about it online, on message boards. And then it flipped back to Houston, we have a problem again. Yet these people are still arguing over it always being Houston, we've had a problem. So the flip-flops really do get you. I'm surprised it took you more than one, to be honest with you.
Me too.
All right, let's see, wrong button here. Okay, as you mentioned, I am a co-author with Eileen Colts, who has one YouTube channel, Paulo M. Pinto, who has Spirit Walker YouTube channel, and Vanessa V.A., who has a YouTube channel by the same name. So this is a 4-part book, 4 authors. We all kind of give our perspective on what we think might be happening with it. So we do have that available in the back, and it's available for ebook. I do want to clarify right off the bat that this is my subjective experience. I encourage everybody to see what messages maybe you can see in the Mandela Effect. These were simply what came to me at the time. And I think a lot of it has to do with your worldview. I think this is a very individualized phenomenon. So I do ask that if I had one agenda, it would be to objectively consider if this could be a good thing. Because I know a lot of people are sort of set on it being a negative thing. Maybe it's both, I don't know. Some people feel like their way is the right way or the only way. I definitely do not feel that way. I don't feel like anybody has the answers to all of this. We all might see the changes differently or not at all. We have our own worldviews and experiences which filter through what we see. And so we're going to see things differently. And when you do get a message that you feel, it could be tailored to you precisely. So It's not my intent to offend anyone. This is just my journey. So get the disclaimer out of the way. So. Okay, so I actually came across the Mandela Effect in spring of 2016, and I came across Fruit Loops and the Berenstein Bears, which I'd never even heard of. The Berenstain Bears, I never heard of either version of them. And then Looney Tunes, which, I was pretty sure about it, but, it was like one of those things where when you have a certain worldview, you think things happen a certain way. It's really hard to say that, the impossible is happening over some kind of faulty memory. Now, I had my memories, but to leave that and say, well, my memories are perfect, something impossible happened, it just wasn't possible. So it would take me about a year before I would see it. I was real busy at the time doing decals for videos. I actually do have some decals in the back for $5. Everybody gets a free one of the small ones there that say, "You are loved." She's holding them up. Thank you very much, Kimberly. So yeah, grab those on the way out, the smaller ones, or you can get the other ones for $5. But I got into doing like graphics for like different car clubs and stuff like that. It should have seemed like a dream job, but it just wasn't very fulfilling. So I think it would take me a year before I really needed to see it. So I wasn't really ready yet. So should have been living the dream. We go to me and my son would go to these car shows, and it was really a fun time. People recognizing me, and you saw in the car there, I'd done all that with like decals, and I'd have these guys coming up and say, "Man, you did all that with stickers, man," and like freaking out or whatever. But so it was really a fun time with my son and everything, but it just wasn't fulfilling. So later in this year, our rental home got destroyed by what they call in Tulsa. I'd never heard of it until it happened to me. A gust-nado. I don't know if you guys heard of it. No, not a tornado, a gust-nado. It might be a Mandela Effect because I'd never heard of it. But I went in my backyard and you could see like where the trees, everything, there was it looked like a cannonball came through, ripped off part of the roof. Both houses on each side were fine. And as a result, the house was destroyed. We had to move into a motel. 7 of us, we have 5 kids. So we were crammed into one room, having to sneak in and out because you can only have like 4 people tops, We couldn't afford 2 rooms, of course. So we did end up getting in the house at the end of 2016. And I've always been sort of a truth seeker in my spare time, trying to figure things out with like the Anunnaki. And I felt like my search had really reached a dead end, like it went off planet, like where I couldn't go any further to investigate. It was like out of reach. And that led to what I call my dark night of the soul. So the dark night of the soul was, for me, I had this nagging feeling of life just being meaningless. I had a brand new grandson, my first grandson, which was awesome, but I thought, man, he's going to grow up, just live his life and die, and that's it. So I was in a really dark place. It was the first time that I actually understood King Solomon in Ecclesiastes, when he actually talks about life becoming utterly meaningless. I totally didn't get that at the time until I went through it myself. I didn't understand people who would commit suicide. Although I wasn't suicidal, I was in a dark place where I could totally imagine someone that, in a more fragile mental state might try to kill himself, So it was an important time. It was a bad time. So I had to do something to sort of pull myself out. And I decided to start Unbiased and on the Fence. It's sort of my philosophy through, I was raised Christian, and Jesus has always been my guy, but I wasn't really into the religion of it, I like what he taught. And so really, leaving the world a better place than I found it was sort of my philosophy at the time, outside of all the other stuff, So in February 2017, I started Unbiased and on the Fence. And really my main objectives was just to create a place where people could share their different ideas without judgment, without ridicule, and really to sort of set aside your own beliefs and see what it would take to believe like other people believe. Like, say a suicide bomber or something, You go in there and you imagine if you were raised in his culture, in his religion, taught what he was taught, could you see yourself doing what he did? And most of us, if we're honest, we'd say, well, yeah, of course we would, we're really the same. So I got this vision at that time about like cubicles. And everybody, all the different worldviews were divided up in their different cubicles in sort of their worst, most extreme part of their worldview was poking up. So you got like the mad scientist, the hell and fire brimstone preacher, you got like the terrorist, and everybody sees, the worst of everyone. But when you sort of come out of your worldview and you walk along the wall or on the fence, as I like to think, you can look down and see everybody's got a family they love and care about, and we're really not much different. So in 2017, March 21st, and I really think this is an important date because it's like the spring equinox. Now I notice a lot of people will wake up during the spring equinox. I know that Guy Fawkes did. A number of other people will notice it in September. So there was something about the switch in the energies or something, but people seem to notice. Well, I'm watching this episode of Leak Project, and Joseph Reyna was on there, and he talks about the lion shall lie down with the lamb was now the wolf. And I was like, oh, he must be mistaken, So I looked it up. You can see here I typed in, this was just recently too, typed in Isaiah 11:6, and here you have it, lions and lambs. There's some wolves in there, but I didn't type in lion and lamb or wolf and lamb. I just typed the Isaiah 11:6 in there, and you can see all these paintings. Now, it's actually changed. At first, you just have the lion shall lie down with the lamb on some of the paintings. Now you go back, and they'll have the full scripture, because they do mention lion later in the scripture, so I found that to be pretty interesting. But after looking into that, I looked and found that Rodin's thinker statue had actually changed. I photoshopped this one here on the left. The fist was really more closed, but I did what I could do with it. So when I looked around and I couldn't see this, I couldn't find any proof of this, this really got me, because this wasn't a memory thing for me. My mom had taken me as a boy to a garage sale, and it was like an elderly lady's garage sale. So she's like, pick something out, there's nothing, Now I know it was on purpose, knickknacks and crap everywhere, and I picked this naked guy thinking, and it's like, I don't remember what the other choices were, I was on like 4, but they couldn't have been very good, So I remember getting that. I remember over the years, from time to time, I would try to draw it. I remember getting frustrated with not making the fist look right to the forehead, It was an aggravating time, but it put that memory note in there of remembering my aggravation with it, So one of my favorite childhood shows was Mr. Wizard's World. I loved it. It was, he'd do different science experiments. Well, in the opening sequence, the thinker was in there. And it was just like the one I had. Now, you go look now, of course, it looks old still. It doesn't look like somebody went and swapped it, but it looks like it's always been the one on the right there. So that kind of freaked me out. But, you can imagine as a kid thinking, I got that statue, my favorite show, and you got that connection. It wasn't a memory thing for me at all. It would be like if somebody said my eye color changed. You don't have to memorize your eye color, you just know it, I wasn't in religion at the time, but I started trying to break down Mandela Effect, the word, and I was thinking, man of the effect. And of course, Jesus referred to himself as Son of Man of the Effect. Immediately I was thinking, Jesus, is this you? Hadn't prayed in years. And I felt like what I would typically experience in church, where it feels like the Holy Spirit came over me, and I had this love and this peace. And so then, of course, I jumped back on, all right, I'm back in Christianity, And I grew up Christian. I read the Bible dozens of times. It was a very comfortable place because, when you know something, you just feel more comfortable in it. I had generations of ministers in the family. My mom was a traveling evangelist. So back to Christianity. I was going to go down the tribulation, great deception, changing dates and times, rapture, return of Christ, and my PC stopped working. Right when I was about to finish the video. Since the video was almost done, I went to my desktop and was making other videos while I was trying to get my laptop going. And then I finally got it going, got the video finished, went to upload it again, and the computer went down again. So I was like, maybe I'm not supposed to do this. Maybe something's stopping me, You go through all these thoughts. So then one night, thinking about it, I get what I call the parable of the thinker. And I actually write this down. Humanity has moved completely to the left. When you think of the left and the right brain, the analytical part, the right brain is more your creative part, and where you can think of it like masculine and feminine. But in this parable of the thinker, I was told that I was trying to create a dual reality to explain the Mandela Effect instead of realizing that we actually have two minds, two brains that we've ignored. And I was told that the thinker had shifted completely to the left. He's in a really awkward place, you see, here on the left. He's on the left leg. For anybody that would have had to pose, that would have been ridiculous to sit like that for that long, you know. But he's unstable, and that was part of what I was told, that it was mimicking, just society or humanity, you know. Then I started looking into the left and the right brain. I saw you can be analytical, intuitive, you can be detailed, or holistic, kind of looking at the whole, or the masculine and the feminine. And I don't think anybody argue with the way the world is more masculine right now. I mean, it's dominated by man and war. The feminine's more nurturing, loving, and it needs a balance. So I was being told that we needed a balance within just society and life, you know. So then I came across, somebody left a comment, and this has happened a number of times where someone will leave a comment under a video that will lead me to my next little nugget, like synchronistically. If anybody hasn't seen this TED Talk by Jill Bolte Taylor, definitely recommend it. It's like 20 minutes long. But she was a neuroanatomist that lost her left brain and explains what it was like to live with just the right brain. She said the voices stopped. Real interesting. You can look it up on YouTube. So then I was looking at dual realities. Now, one of the things that I sort of have a problem with, thinking of it in terms of timelines, if you think of timelines like trains, if you're on one train and you jump into the other one, then things that appear to be one way would have always appeared that way. But one of the things you see is, like with the thinker here, you can find pictures of all sorts of people posing next to it. The people haven't changed, yet the statue did. You have to ask yourself, here's another one with, there's actually more than 18, but you can visibly see 18 softball students with their fist to their forehead while the statue is changed in the back. So then I started realizing that maybe the Mandela Effect is telling us something, because I just got that parable, right? And we typically, if you look up apocalypse, the root word of it, you'll see that it's actually a revelation. It's not like, some kind of cataclysmic event or anything. I realized ME was a wake-up call. It pushed me back to the right brain to even consider this. And I thought D-Wave and CERN, I mean, if you believe that, that's cool, but there's not much you can do with it other than shelf it, Put it on the shelf, unless you're going to go there and try to investigate or something. But other than that, it's sort of a dead end. Or you can think of it as sort of a left brain cop-out so you don't have to go any further. Sort of taking two unexplained things, sticking them together, and then feeling better about it, kind of letting it go. And a lot of people do that if they're not ready to see it. I actually did that myself. So, the revelation of truth. I went back to the original ones I noticed. Fruit Loops. There's no fruit in Fruit Loops, so it changed to this weird spelling of fruit, right? Looney Tunes refers to, T-O-O-N-S refers to cartoons, where T-U-N-E-S refers to frequency. You think of music, frequency, tune in the dial. So we have crazy tunes, right? And that sort of went along with, we're out of whack, we're out of balance. And then, of course, Dolly and her braces. The scene makes absolutely no sense now without any braces. But we got this revelation of truth that she really doesn't need any braces. Her teeth look great, right? So, and then the no, I am your father. I guess the Christians will get the I am reference there. But, okay, so the Bible changes. Now, I had actually gotten out of church because, through the Bible, realizing that much of it was like man-made doctrine attached to the teachings of Jesus. And in even some instances, I found that they actually taught things opposite of what Jesus taught. And one of the main culprits, which I don't think he was all bad, I think maybe he thought he was doing good, but you got to admit when you see that there's over 30,000 Christian denominations, that most of those are divided up over interpretations of what Paul was saying, like predestination or speaking in tongues. Things like that can all go back to confusion within the epistles of Paul. The author of confusion is the devil, is what my mom would always say. So when the scripture, 2 Corinthians 11:8, changed to Paul robbed from the church, I had already realized what I was just saying about Paul, and to me, it was a revelation of truth, because, you know, he kind of sowed confusion and broke up the Christians into all of these smaller segments, which all of them feel like they're right, and, you know, they've got the only way. But, you know, that's about the amount of bumps on a basketball, just to put it in perspective. Christian denominations. So, one of the most shocking scriptures that I came across that had been Mandela Effect, it was when Jesus said, "Bring hither and slay them before me," in one of his parables. And this is one that, you know, if you don't try to see it positively, you'll totally miss this one. But if you do look at it positively, well, what could it be saying there? If you're sort of held up in your spiritual walk, it's the flesh or the ego that gets in your way from spiritual growth, you know. So I want to stick this quick Mandela Effect in here, because I found the nickel in 2017 at that time while I'm going through all of this. And most people still haven't seen it, but everybody's familiar with this one. This is the one I grew up with. And then I remember when this special one came out from the side. That was cool. That was 2004, 2005. But I remembered it going back to the first one after that. So in 2017, I realized that this has been our main nickel since 2006. Like, it was the first time I'd ever noticed it, you know? And I'm thinking, this thing's been around since before my son was born? There's no way, you know? So just so you know, this has been our main nickel, you know, for 13 years. Does that seem right to you guys?
Not really. No.
So, and it's still, I come across people that's like, no, it's, you know, I don't think it's been around that long. So the next thing I came across was chopped off T's and logos. This specific one, when I saw that a lot of the popular things were being affected, I thought, well, Walmart, that's pretty popular. Has it changed? So then I pictured it in my mind. And when I looked at it, I'm like, well, wait a minute, that T wasn't chopped off on the left there. Then I looked that up and actually came across Moneyback's YouTube channel. And he had done a video on a whole bunch of different logos where the T seemed to have this sort of side chopped off to it, you know? So, to me, it was saying the same thing that the thinker was saying. You know, if you're from the T's perspective, you're chopping off the right side and moving to the left. You know, and it's sort of, to me, it was saying that same thing. And if you think of the divine feminine, the divine masculine, people remember both of these, this couple here facing forward. This is a Photoshop version. Now you got the divine feminine that's on the right looking to the masculine left, saying the same thing. Another thing is, this is another one I photoshopped. The Mona Lisa had an enigmatic expression. You really couldn't tell what the heck she was. Is she smiling? Is she angry? What's going on, you know? Is she just, you know, you just can't tell. But as you see the one on the right, she gained a smile, this mole or wart or something right there, which actually I had to re-Photoshop it because I Photoshopped that version. Then that got added, and the hairnet got added, so I had to go back and take them out of that one. So as she keeps changing, I have to keep going back and fixing the original one. It updates automatically. I'm like, what the heck? Now keep in mind, I have to zoom way in on that eyeball when I'm photoshopping it. That eyeball is the size of my screen. There's no way I would miss that mole right next to the eye. There's just no way, because it's the size of my screen. I know it wasn't there. So then I come across Oscar Mayer. What could this possibly be saying? And when I think of Oscar Mayer, I think of Mayer like John Mayer. He's the only Mayer I know. And, you know, I was a big fan of his music, so I'm like, well, what's the first song that I remember by him? What's the baloney here, you know? Another word for BS, right? So what does John Mayer say? He says, there's no such thing as the real world. It's a lie you've got to rise above. So I'm thinking of that, and I'm like, well, reality's not what I think it is. I already figured that out, right? So why aren't people seeing this? You know, at the time, I was working at the flea market, I was telling you, and I ended up having to quit there because it's just, man, you talk to people about it, you get these strange responses. You know, either they see it, and then they go on and get on their phone or act like it's no big deal. So I couldn't be around that. I couldn't shut up because I was just, you get people that just want to hang out and talk, and then they'd say something that was related to the Mandela Effect, and there it goes, you know what I mean? So while pondering all this, something amazing happened. I was sitting in my car at Quick Trip. My daughter had ran in to grab something, and I was wondering, man, it seems like when I left religion, I tried to show things to my family. They didn't want to listen. It was like I was always on my own, always alone. And now this Mandela Effect happens. Why aren't people seeing it? What the heck's going on? And I just felt real alone in that moment. And the next thing that happens was Whitesnake starts playing on the radio. Now I turn it up out of nostalgia. I'm like, oh, I haven't heard this in a while, And I start listening to the words. And the words reflected exactly what I was feeling at the time about, always being alone, searching for answers, never finding what I'm looking for. And then, here I go again on my own. And then to walk along the lonely street of dreams stood out to me. It kind of went along with the John Mayer thing about no such thing, Is it a dream? So I tell my daughter about it, my 20-year-old at the time. She's my second oldest. She's the one with my grandson. She just had him like a few months before that. And I think I was pointing out like the American Gothic painting or something to her. But she saw it, she got it, but she had to leave. So she leaves. I left to go somewhere, and I was passing. She was pulling out a different street out of the subdivision, and I pulled up to the light. This Mustang gets off. He's like jetting down the street. I hear this collision. It's my daughter and this Mustang. I look in the rearview mirror and freak out. I back up. I'm like there in like 30 seconds. And you can see in this picture here, she was in the blue car. The Mustang's a little bit out of view, but it's behind there. It had pushed her car completely, 90 degrees with the newborn baby in the car. So I was freaking out. Everybody ended up being fine. But I took my grandson to the Quick Trip parking lot to get him out of all the noise and excitement. And while I was over there, I started seeing everything looking like a movie set. It just didn't look real, and it was going back to that whole, there's no such thing as the real world. So as I was considering all of that, I felt so guilty that I had freaked her mind out, and then she wasn't paying attention, because you know how it is when you see it, you're like totally distracted, She'll tell you to this day that, it had nothing to do with that, but, I know it had some contributing factor, or at least I feel that way. But I felt like it was an important moment to see if this is some kind of game, some kind of movie set, some kind of dream, some kind of consciousness. Now, when I say simulation, I mean more like things are being like projected in a hologram. So it's more of a holographic. I don't see much of a difference between them. I see it as, the holographic being the way the simulation is created, but it's all just sort of this simulated reality. So then I came across the Golden Child Mandela Effect. I was thinking of movies I watched a lot as a kid. I loved Eddie Murphy. This is about the only one I could record that my mom would let me watch because he was pretty foul. So I watched it a ton of times. It was really funny to me. So I put this on and while I'm doing my work, and I was noticing that I was like saying each line before they happened because I'd watched it dozens of times, probably 20 times at least, as a kid. So then it gets to this one part. I don't know if you guys saw this movie. Anybody see this movie? Yeah. Okay, so he goes downstairs, the first time meeting the serpent woman behind the screen, And they say, you can ask her whatever you want, And so he asks her something. Tell me about and what I said in my mind and what he said were completely different. And I knew he hadn't said that, I just knew it, So now I remember him saying, tell me about the kid. Tell me about the kid. And now he says, tell me about the golden child. I'm like, dude, he never said golden child. He said golden kid one point in the movie, but he never said golden child. You can watch trailers. You think they wouldn't have stuck him saying the movie title in the trailer? I mean, there's all sorts of things. But in that movie, he is this character that sort of pokes fun at being the chosen one, right? He's told that he's got to save the golden child. It's his destiny and all this stuff. And he's doing it, but he's like making fun of it the whole time, not really taking it seriously. So then what I felt like it was telling me is that there was a lot of people that were inactive because of ego. Like, what can I do? I'm no different. I'm not special, you know. And I think there's a fine line between, you know, thinking you're better than everyone and then thinking you can't do anything. So once again, things can be out of balance there. And I found that a lot of great, loving people are sort of in that inactivity thing because they don't want to put off an egoic sort of, you know, vibe or whatever. So then I was sort of shown how you are the star of your life. Each one of us is the star of our own life, you know. We can make it what we want. And it was my destiny to help awaken humanity. So who am I? So I'm wondering, like, who am I? What can I do? And a book came to mind, a book from when I was a child. It was my favorite book, preschool book, that my mom would read me. And it was called Milton the Early Riser. Now, of course, this all came back to my memory. I totally forgot about this book, but I remembered the title and everything because, like I said, it was my favorite book. And I looked it up, and you see here, children and their parents will appreciate the antics of Milton, a young panda who is up and about long before his friends and family and who exhausts himself in efforts to wake up everyone else. And that's what I was doing at the time. So I'm like crying, and plus the panda's white and black. I'm white and black. You know, I'm like, all this stuff's coming back. I'm like, what the heck? So then I realized, oh my God, my whole life, this has been all like planned my whole life. Because that was like when I was 4, you know. So if you think about it, man, it was a really an eye-opening experience because I used to do video editing, music, everything I did I end up doing on my channel now, making videos, and it was really like a huge part of my life, you know. So then I came across, I thought, you know, I watched The Never-Ending Story, not nearly as much as The Golden Child, but I thought I might find a Mandela Effect in it, so I put it on. Actually, there has been a Mandela Effect since I put this video out and realized this back in 2017, where the end of the song, where people remember him saying, the never-ending story, now the is not on there anymore. So it's not a 100% thing for me, but for a lot of people, they remember it, the never-ending story, with the on there. And now it's just never-ending story without the. So I don't know if that affects anyone else. 2 truths I found in the never-ending story that really blew my mind. It was 2 things, the layers of reality. So you've got the people in the theater are watching the never-ending story, and they're seeing this boy getting bullied. He gets this book, and he goes within that story. So there's like 3 layers of the dreams within dreams. And then I realized that the whole story is about them trying to save the land of Fantasia. Trying to save the land of Fantasia from the nothing that's taking it over. So then I came across this part in the movie where Gomork, the bad guy in it, that's trying to track down Atreyu. This is the very bottom story dream within the dream. He says, "Don't you know anything about Fantasia?" That's what they're trying to save. It's the world of human fantasy. Every part, every creature, is a place of the dreams and hopes of mankind. Right brain, just what I'd been shown, right? So the nothing, therefore it has no boundaries. But why is Fantasia dying? The right brain, right? Because people have begun to lose their hopes and forget their dreams. So the nothing grows stronger. What is the nothing? It's the emptiness that's, notice the double entendre there, left, the left brain. It's the emptiness that's left. It is a despair destroying the world. And he's been trying to help it. He's the bad guy. Why have you been trying to help it? Because people who have no hopes are easy to control. And whoever has the control has the power. Who are you really? He says, I am the servant of the power behind the nothing. So then, like, it's all coming, because back at that time, I'm realizing about, you got the ruling families that, are, keeping us at the grinding wheel of work. You don't have much leisure time to like search out and look things up and grow spiritually. You're sort of, and most of us have at least been that way, where you're just working, trying to pay your bills, not much time for anything else. If you're lucky, you might catch a movie every now and then. So then the boy that's reading this story realizes that they're talking to him, trying to communicate with him to use his imagination to save Fantasia. And of course, the boy can't believe it. He can't think anybody can be that important, which led me back to what I just found out with the golden child. She says, why don't you do what you dream? That's the right brain again. And then he agrees to do it. And of course, Fantasia is saved. And he actually gets to ride on the big flying dog or whatever. I guess it's a dragon. It looked like a dog. I came across a video on YouTube where they had pointed out Dolores Cannon had talked about people waking up, certain people, they called them volunteers. The Law of One calls them wanderers. It's people that sort of helps awaken humanity. It's like their role. They came here to do that. And this book came out in 2011. So when I looked at that and found out the stories within the book came from like the previous decade, compiled into a book. So this kind of blew my mind. So in chapter 23, it's called The Best Agenda for Earth. I recommend picking this book up. You can get it for like $7 on Google Play or the iStore, Apple Store. So this guy named Randy, who worked at home, has this session. It's like I don't know if everybody's familiar with Dolores Cannon, but she does like hypnosis regression. And sometimes people will go into the future or just have a completely different manufactured experience, sort of like he's about to have here. So he goes into this hypnosis, and he sees these two, I guess you would think of them as like ascended sort of beings. They're people like us, but they're higher level people. They're just more conscious, more awake. They have more abilities. But they were discussing how to help Earth. And it says, no, there's two opposing views or ideas. It has something to do with the Earth. They both want the evolution of the Earth to happen. They have input on ideas on the best way for that to come about. One group wants direct influence, and the other group wants a less direct influence. It's the two different perspectives, the two different ideas, whether it's a direct influence or an indirect influence. So Dolores says, each one could have different results, couldn't they? Yes. Well, you said they both agree on the evolution of Earth? Right. That's their common goal. She asked, well, what is the evolution of Earth? The evolution of human consciousness, to snap them out of the cycle they're in. So she says, have they been involved in helping us in Earth before? Yes, they've always been here. So this is not a new faction that has come in. No. If they have always been here, what part have they been involved in? He says subtle influences, they're held on multiple planes, different planes. So in one sense, their presence, their frequency. What has that presence and frequency accomplished? I guess you could say it's brought light. I already see the correlation. As he started to explain, he suddenly became very emotional. He was trying to cry, but attempting to hold it back. Why does it make you emotional? Randy was still trying to gain control, and he says, sort of like being a parent, trying to provide a healthy, happy environment, and it becomes difficult. So what does that have to do with why you're here? So I can go back, I can look at these beings that are here. They operate on multiple dimensions. On one dimension, they have ships. So you would typically, non-terrestrials, you would think of them. But they're also more consciousness driven. They have physical forms manifested. They have the ability to influence other beings and their intentions and operate on that dimension as they can have an influence with just their mere presence. This will limit the amount of other beings that can come in and influence. Now, of course, they're doing it from the shadows, hidden. We don't see them because of free will and all that. So although they don't engage in anything, their presence is known on a higher dimension or a different dimension. The frequency of their consciousness, their intent also helps create the protection around the Earth. It's not an encasement. There's still absolute free will, free flow, but there is an energy that is additive. So as I'm reading through all of this, it says, they're trying to bring in this holy light. So then I get to this part, which blew my mind, because it doesn't say the Mandela Effect, but here it says there's a faction that wants to more directly influence. So in a broad sense, that could mean they are here by interfering with the other benevolent group. That's one level. And they might influence by making material changes in this dimensional reality, observable changes. So I read that, I'm like, oh my God, that's how I would describe the Mandela Effect without a name, So one group thinks it'd be more beneficial to do these sort of observable changes in our material reality to sort of awaken us. So that led me to looking at the law of one. Now, I wouldn't look at this for a while because, I remember watching The Prince of Egypt with my kids. And, the magicians come out there by the power of Ra, and, it's this god and stuff. And I'm like, I'm not reading that, dude. That's evil, So I did. I think it was David Wilcock that mentioned something out of it. I'm like, well, that doesn't sound evil. So right away in the beginning of, if you go and you can actually read it online for free. It says right in the beginning there was a distortion with the teachings of Ra, and they turned them into God. What they actually are is like a group of these higher beings that are like sent here to help us, realize, actually not even to force us one way or the other, but to sort of let us decide if we want to evolve positively or negatively, or service to others or service to self. Okay, Luke 11:11. Now, most people are familiar with the, seek and you shall find scripture. But right after that, in 11 it says, if your son asks for bread, would you hand him a rock? If he asks for, a fish, would you give him a serpent? If he asks for an egg, would you give him a scorpion? And it says, if you're evil and you know not to do this, how much more will your heavenly Father give to those who ask, or give the Holy Spirit to those? So I came across the parable of the sower and the weeds also. And in this parable, Jesus talks about, and this just came to me the other day, but I wanted to stick this in here because I think one of the things that sort of go around is that the crops grow up together, and you pluck out the weeds once that happens. And we're taught that it's like the crops are the good people, the weeds are the bad people. But then I realized maybe it's talking about sort of the distortions that's been in religion, right? Like it's going to be allowed to stay in there, and then at some point, we're going to get this revelation of truth, which is exactly what I felt like I was coming across with all of this. And I really feel like the distortions are going to continue to fade away. I started trying to make these connections. I was actually going to, I'm glad I didn't have a printer, because I was going to make my wall full of these Mandela Effects with threads, like pointed one way to the other. But I started seeing like connections, like you got Sally Fields, is now Sally Field, and she was, of course, Forrest Gump's mom, so there's that connection, with the life is like a box of chocolates change. And then Sally's beauty supply had been Sally. So I'm noticing like Sally, S is disappearing. And of course, some of the ones I've already mentioned there. But even like with her name going from Fields to Field kind of led you to Field of Dreams, which actually has Earl, what's his name again? James Earl Jones, who does the voice of Darth Vader. So there's that connection. So I just started following you. Here was another one. I don't know if you guys knew the sign changed here. It used to be this way, now it's that way. So that was another left to right thing that I noticed. And you'll notice now in a parking sign, it almost looks like an R because it goes right through the P, so it just doesn't look right, So this can go on, and this is actually available on my Facebook page, this video, this image here. Okay, so I'm glad I had time for this because I thought I had lost this file. This is the best evidence I have for something changing. Now I know it's not easy for everybody to believe me. I was going to art college in 2009 through 2013 or something. In 2009, my professor approached me and said, hey, they've got this Adobe contest. It's this global event. It's going to be held in Japan. If you enter it, if you win, they're going to pay for you to get flown out there and all this stuff. Well, that sounds like fun. I had plenty of time, so I decided to create this piece of artwork here. This piece of artwork was created by taking like 36 languages, the word love in 36 languages. I got a map off of Google, and I used it as a guide. So it was on a hidden layer in my AI, my Illustrator file. You couldn't see it, but it was there. You can see here in this image, I uploaded it in 2012 to Fine Art America. At that time, I called it Love in Every Language. But, so this artwork, you can see, I can't adjust the upload date on that website. I've also got the email here where, this is actually April, you can't probably read that, April 8th of 2011. That's when I first tried to, sign up to get the art, submit it. Here's when they said, unfortunately, it wasn't chosen. And this was June 6th of 2011. So I wasn't allowed to use a piece of art that was out there. So once I lost this competition, a year later I decided to put it on there. And this is sort of an up-close view of all the different languages, even in the ocean. So when let's see here, this is a close-up of North America. And this is Europe. Now, this is what the Illustrator file looked like when I opened it back up. Now, you can see what I would do is I would just place the letters over there and sort of adjust it with the outline of the landmass. So like this piece of land sticking down here wasn't like that at the time when I created the art. You can see there's a number of islands along here with no words on it. Everywhere there was an island, where there was land, I would put one of the words of love in that spot. Even here, you can see where it grew out further here. So although many people will look at this and they'll say, well, no, South America's way to the right still. New Zealand's below Australia. I don't know if some of it, in fact, I know some of it's changed because I just looked and some of it's overlapping now and it wasn't like that. And I just noticed this the other day. So you can see here's a close-up view. Here's 1,200 times the size. It was vector art. So when you see these tiny islands I missed, it looked like this when I would have missed them. I mean, you can't miss it because it's way bigger, Here you can see where we're looking at right here. That little red dot so this is Bahamas. So you can see in the previous image, we actually zoomed in on this little section right here. You can actually zoom in 6,400 times. So South America, you can see where the edge used to end right here. And you can see all this extra stuff was not like that. I would have filled that in. In fact, you can see some of it still lines up. It just used to end there. It didn't go out there. So I'm like, oh my God, I know I didn't leave it like that. I'm not like a geography buff or anything. I don't know all of that well, but I know what the file looked like when I left it. And like this sticking out, there's all these little details that have changed. Denmark, I don't know where Denmark was. I'd heard of Denmark, but this was ocean. That was ocean when I did this artwork, Wow. These islands here, all of these, new. This even came, I would have had that, you can see how I followed that up. This K would have came over, so this is new. And it's like that all over. Most of it is new. There is a few areas that, here you can see here the Maldives. These have changed since I actually created it. When I first noticed that they popped up, they were more like just kind of dots going up there. Now they're starting to connect and everything. These here, and here's the funny thing, a lot of them got labels, right? So like these new words popped up and they wouldn't have released this map, this professional map with words overlapping because these words were on my guide map underneath. So these labels were on that map that was supposedly like distributed that way. You can see this right here. There used to be an island there, nothing there now, just the word over the water. I don't know what happened to it. Now, I'm really thankful all these islands were there. It would have taken me a whole nother year because there's like literally probably hundreds more islands. I'd heard of Fiji. I don't know where it was, but it wasn't here, You can see all of these are new. So many more. And I do plan on doing a longer video on this, but for the sake of time. Here you see, this is the South Pacific Ocean. This was not like this. This was all water. I don't know where all this land's coming from, but it of course got labeled, amazingly. Here's another little cluster here. Okay, we're up here by Alaska now. Once again, you can see here there's new ones. There's ones in between these. I'll actually zoom in a little further. So you can see, to miss that, it would have looked like this at the time I was creating it. And there's just no way I would have done that one and missed three in between, And I could actually zoom in a little bit further than this, but this is just to show you exactly how far in, see that island there? This I can make all the way like that, as I'm working on it. So there's absolutely no way I just happened to miss some of these. All right, so that is it, you guys.
thing. I just want to make a comment and say that when all this journey started for me, I was in a place where I found the Berenstain Bear thing, and I just thought that you know, it was a sign, oh my God, it's the Antichrist. They're going to start changing the Bible. And then I found that. And then I was like in this place of terror. And Vanessa VA, who's one of the authors of the book, The Mandela Effect, Friend or Foe, that Shane also authored, she has a graph in there that shows, it shows like people like, you know, where they are in a normal place, and then the Mandela affected people. And then there's a targeted individual horror area. I stayed there for about 3 years, and it had to do with like attacks in the dream state and everything. And until I found Shane's channel and the group of people in the chat room, I was in a place of so much fear that I could hardly even function. So I'm very thankful to the channel Unbiased and On the Fence. And I think that that everybody that doesn't come to our chat room and enjoy the shows needs to try to come, because it's been a blessing for me.
Thank you. Yeah, I think most people can agree that, you know, you go through this time of like, you know, somebody messing with me here, you know, am I going to get called out if I do notice this? Because I know when I was at the flea market and people weren't seeing it, I'm like, man, am I going to have to play along with everybody? What's going on here, you know? But yeah, it can be, and I was in that place too for a short time. Thank God it wasn't 3 years. But yeah, is there any other questions or comments?
Testing. All right. So I just want to say how great it is to have a brother like Shane, because you and I are just kindred spirits, and so many people here. Because when you've gone down this rabbit hole, you can't talk to just anybody. And we connected through our YouTube, didn't know each other, but we instantly felt like we knew each other. And that's what this is all about. Just getting to know, you know, you don't have to feel like you're an oddball here. Right. You're not, but that's...
Absolutely. Yeah, nice to know you, man.
I fully agree with that.
Yeah, that's what I think is great about this, you know, get together, this conference here, is that you could have a conversation with people between, you know, presentations and things like that. And people don't think you're crazy. You can talk about all the crazy stuff you see and experience, and just share your ideas without sort of being judged, because nobody has all the answers. So everybody's welcome to share their ideas, and it really expands our consciousness when we do that. Is there any other questions or comments anybody want to make? So this guy's got a great book, Mandela,
Mind Beyond Matter, the Mandela Effect. It's about my experiences in 15 and the Mandela effects throughout the whole thing.
First Mandela book I read. I love it.
First one you read.
Yeah, right.
Because I've checked online while I was writing this thing, there was only one out there, and then all of a sudden, boom, right before I put my book out, there was, 20 ebooks and 5, 6 other Mandela Effect books. I'm like, where'd these people come from?
Right.
Might have been 1 or 2. I was just going to say, I think it's great that you're investigating the way you are and looking into the messages and making them personal, because that's where you're going to get your answers, your personal answers. I always said I think this is going to come down to an individual thing.
And I really believe that, yeah.
It's great we have the group and people to talk to outside of our friends and family. We need that. But I still really think it's going to come down to an individual thing. And I like what you did, breaking all that down. A lot of the things you said got me thinking and changed some of my thinking on some things.
Oh, awesome.
My mom would be very happy with you.
I appreciate that.
So I had a question about, you said that you looked throughout the Bible for these different Mandela changes. Have you looked in any other old texts, Sumerian or maybe even in other religious books like the Quran or the Torah?
I should have asked that.
Sorry. Okay, I take the question back.
I have read at least some of the Quran, and but not enough. Like the Bible, I read dozens of times. So for me, it was like, and I hadn't read it. They say the whole Zeno effect that Cynthia talks about. It's a good thing because I read it and sort of kind of shelved it for a while because I'd read it so many times. I moved on to other things. So it had been years since I revisited it, and you can see all these changes real easily. I've noticed there'll be elderly women in churches that read their Bible all day, and they just overwrite those memories with the way it is because, judge not lest you be judged. If you read that the new way, judge not that you be not judged. And so, you still hear people quote the other way, but your mind's not going to think, oh, that impossibly changed in this Bible, that the same one I've been reading for 50 years, So I think the more you're involved with it, the more you don't see it, or maybe your history gets rewritten, like Cynthia was talking with the Zeno effect. Any other questions or comments? Yeah.
Shane, I just loved your presentation. I loved all the connections that you were making. Like, wow, like really great job with that. I wanted to make a comment, though, about this artwork over here, this beautiful artwork that's been done, because this is the second time, let's see if anything else falls from here, but this is the second time something has happened. I was doing an interview with Jerry, and we were talking about, as soon as we talked about questioning authority, the sign collapsed. And then as soon as you were talking about questioning in texts, and if there's any other historical text that you see changes with, the sign fell apart again. So I think there's something going on. So my advice is question authority. we're good so far. Okay.
Absolutely.
I love that presentation. My gosh, I never thought I'd meet a person that was that in depth with the map and had that in detail of being able to tell between the different changes, because it often just changes with the memory and barely anyone notices. I, as a intuitive psionic person, I like tracking things back in what happens and changes on the planet. And I found a lot of the map changes are on like timelines merging to where like somehow Earth is wanting more territory to be in effect on the planetary change, as well as like things happen in geomantic ways of like earthquakes and then islands popping up, and some to where there's even like technology on the islands where they teleport back into existence or come out of some camouflage or even moving islands. So it's very interesting that you are covering this topic of islands and land masses that are expanding. Do you find that it's exponentially increasing the amount of land masses that are coming into existence and less that are disappearing? And what got you into doing that artwork? So I have a few questions.
Oh, no, that's a perfect question, and I think about that because at the time I was thinking it's this global event with all these different languages, that judges from every language, and I wanted to make sure not only that their language was there, but I also wanted to make sure wherever area they came from was accurate, So, because we tend to look where we're from, so I wasn't going to jack up anybody's area and lose the contest. Of course, you can say, well, you lost the contest because you jacked up their area, but it wasn't like that at the time. So I think it's telling us that, it's not sort of volcanoes pushing land up, because maps don't automatically update, right? So, it's easy to say that, well, maybe, volcanoes, who's paying attention out in the middle of the Pacific Ocean or whatever? But here we have, evidence of them just appearing there and appearing to always been there. And I want to also mention the Maldives string of islands there that I showed that was new. That's actually where the 6-foot winged bat that people consider a new Mandela Effect animal, because most people don't remember a bat that big. But they're from those islands that, appear to have always existed. So I don't feel like the landmass that went away is, all those people were lost. I think, in this reality now, it was never there, and now they're dispersed amongst where the land actually is, because there's a lot more of it. A lot more is there than has been taken away. I want to say only like 3 or 4 words were out over the water. There were some areas where my words extended into the water, so it looks like it receded some. But I'll go more in depth with that. Hopefully I get Lone Eagle on. He's got his own YouTube channel. He's more familiar with just the map in general, to discuss it with him.
So
Did I miss any of the questions?
No.
Oh, okay.
So like Mandela animals that are coming into existence are also going along with the island changes that you've noticed. That'd
Exactly.
be a cool rabbit hole to continue.
Yeah.
If you, I'd enjoy talking about that with you back and forth and see if we
Absolutely.
can find some stuff.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, man.
You mentioned Ron Eagle. He actually was trying to come this year and he wasn't able to.
Yeah, I need to get. We've been going back and forth for like 2 years trying to, do
You
something.
guys want a great channel for maps, Lone Eagle.
So Shane, I had a little contribution to make. While Sean was asking you his question, you were answering, something came to me, and it has to do with the quantum mechanics of quantum observation and entanglement, in the sense that it is very interesting to look at the synchronicity. And this is the same, it comes back to the same concept of the golden child that you were talking about. It's like no one can do everything, but you have to have done something to have done anything. And when I look at you doing that project, you were writing the word love all over. The word love was being imprinted onto our map. And the fact that the land masses expanded just to hold an open space, is it a potential, a possibility that we are that powerful in the most humble and reverent way, that we are that humble, we the first waves that are in observance and entangled with this Mandela effect at this point in this timeline, that doing things such as, from the micro to the macro can have these impacts on a larger scale.
Right. I totally agree. And I think a lot of times that's used against us with media, predictive programming, things like this. They get enough people thinking the wrong sort of ideas can actually bring them about. So really it's just having that knowledge, that knowing of all of that helps us turn that around and start using it to our benefit instead of allowing it to be used against us. And to bring up the map again, I think it's ironic that I was trying to spread love in every language all over the world. And it's exactly what I ended up doing in a very real sense.
Go forth and multiply.
Exactly. So yeah, it's because I was sort of in between Christianity and truth seeker and all of that. But creating that artwork, I imagine maybe they might display it in an international airport or something like that. So in my mind, it was a very simple idea for the artwork.
So I have a question. You mentioned 2 months when the Mandela effect is the roughest or the most experienced. What 2 months were those?
What?
What 2 months that you mentioned where the Mandela effect was really heavy or had a real strong effect? What 2 months were those?
It would have been March and April, probably into May, 2 solid months.
And you mentioned another one toward the end of the year. What month was that?
Towards the end of the year, would have been around Christmas. Oh, you're talking, right,
In your
the equinox.
talk.
The equinox.
Yeah, what months did you mention?
That would be March, towards the end of March, towards the end of September.
March and September. That's actually independently verified from another person that's told me that. So when you said that, I was like, oh my goodness.
Yeah,
Now, if I may, can you pull that map back up?
sure. You want the full one or?
Where's one with Denmark on it?
Oh yeah, that one's a trip because I'm like, where was it? Oh, did I pass it? Oh, there it is.
Okay, right here. Good. So, if those who don't know, there's a channel called Chick Effect. And she does the map changes also. She's really good at them. And she has a lot of claims. I'm not a map person. I wasn't the best geography person in school. Not at all. Half these countries, I couldn't even tell you what side of the planet they were on, let alone where they were located. So I never argued against a lot of these. I have to take a lot of people's word on these. However, she claimed Denmark had moved. And of course, I can't dispute it. However, right here's where she claimed it moved. And now we have evidence that when he made this map, that would have been, that's a whole country. That's not a small island he could have missed. That's a huge spot of land to accidentally overlook in a project like this.
You see they're overlapping. Yeah.
So the fact that this whole section is exactly where the other person said it had moved to, this verifies that you clearly didn't do this because it clearly wasn't there at the time.
It wasn't there, no, it was ocean.
And there's a couple down here too. The independent verification that you gave twice in this talk, I just got to say, was absolutely amazing.
Awesome, man. I'm glad. So yeah, the things that I've seen places that like I think Ibiza is an island that somebody says, oh well, that's Ibiza, and I'm like, well, I heard of Ibiza a long time ago, so I don't know where it was, but it wasn't there when I did the map, So.
I was an exchange student in Sweden in the late 80s, and I remember we would take a ferry to go to Denmark. It was cheaper there, like cheaper alcohol and stuff.
Like across here, or
But
across?
no, we would go to the south of Sweden and then a ferry down to Denmark.
Oh, so Denmark used to be down
It
here?
was down here.
Oh, okay, that makes
Yes,
sense.
this whole thing was never to the side. I hadn't looked this close
Yeah.
lately. The Italy one and the Australia one were the
Right.
ones that got me a lot more. This wasn't one that I had been paying attention to.
Mm-hmm.
But we'd come to the very tip here and go straight south to hit Denmark.
Wow, so it used to be down here.
Yes,
So
yes.
some of that got increased, I guess. And okay, so that's cool. And I want to reiterate that I only know that my art changed. I can't, I'm not like a geography buff by any sense.
I just noticed something that solidifies your message. Oh, wait, no.
Okay.
That it moved. It says, loved kingdom of Denmark.
Wow. That's cool. Loved Kingdom of Denmark. Yeah, that's cool.
Closer to truth.
And once again, you can see that, they wouldn't have released a map with words overlapping like that. They would have just moved it down a little bit. So, sort of automatically done.
I just want to make sure she's talking into a mic.
Is there any other questions or comments, anybody?
So that was a great presentation. I'd like to mention the idea that you brought up about people finding that balance between taking action and that feeling of inactivity. I think that's a really key idea for people right now, because so many people, they notice the effect, they get a lot of kickback from friends, family, society. They don't know what to do with it. Do you have any words of advice for people who are just feeling like they don't know where to go?
Yeah, I would say, find a community like this and with like-minded people, because I noticed that, when you push people, it's never a good thing, because people that aren't ready to see it just aren't going to see it, and even can get hostile or angry. You can lose friends. I know a lot of people has lost contact with friends and family and stuff over this. And they feel like they've changed, but I realize how much I've changed too, so I know it isn't one-sided by any stretch. So things are going to change, and I think just finding other people that see it as well is super helpful.
And I think one thing that you're not saying, but it kind of comes through anyway, is keep looking at the positive side.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
Because you can find it if you look for it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, an attitude of gratitude, being really optimistic about it. And that really, just considering optimism in my journey is what really started the whole thing, with me asking, is this you, Jesus? Now, I believe there's, I know that we as humans put labels on, like Jesus or Holy Spirit, God, angels and cosmic and soul family. But I realize that that's a very human thing that we do, and that there's sort of I like to think of it as a benevolent agency up there that doesn't get caught up on, the label. So if you cry out to Archangel Michael when you're about to have a wreck, and it should have been Archangel Raphael or something, I don't know who does what. But they're not going to say, oh, you called on the wrong dude, You should have called on Jesus for that one. They don't seem to care about the labels, and I've tried it in practice, and it seems like, if your intention is to do good, it's sort of a heart-driven intention. It goes to the right place. You don't have to, get the label right. That's a human thing that we do, I think.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, anybody else have any questions? We got a couple more minutes to kill if you do. Please. All right, great job, Shane.
Thanks, buddy.
Ladies and gentlemen, Shane Robinson.
Thank you for all you do, buddy.
Thank you, brother. It's been an honor.